Okay, we are rolling, dude. We are going.
All right, let's do it.
Have you ever talked philosophically for YouTube before?
I have not. I've talked philosophically on here to some people, um, but no, not on YouTube.
Have you had any really good conversations that have stuck with you?
I had one tonight. It was with a political science major in college, and we were of opposite political ideologies in some regards, but we came to like a mutual understanding through sort of just working through our own worldview and then the sort of the objective and subjective aspects of what we were talking about, which mostly pertain to like economic racial injustice. How does that really express itself and what is the actual solution possible? And we talked for like an hour and a half, I think. Just
Oh
like
my!
she was smart and like we had a I could tell we had different thought processes, so it balanced well. Yeah.
What was like what? Where was she coming from, and where was she coming from? Where are you coming from, and where did you find common ground?
We both see there's injustice. I think what we differed on was the source of that and the actual integration of that. Like we were trying to get to the bottom of okay, we see economic injustice, we see racial injustice. Who's perpetuating it really? And if the people who are perpetuating it really are perpetuating it to the level we think they are, of course they would want a distraction. So like we were trying to decide, okay, implementation of a distraction in the society, in the culture for, if is this a class war disguised as a race war? Is this a change of political structure for an impending economic overhaul? And she's you know she was more on the side of identity politics, which I'm not
You're
impartial.
speaking my language. You're speaking my entire language right
Yep.
now. Yeah, I love
Like
this.
I I don't ascribe to identity politics as much so far as most of my generation does. I do think I do believe in the individuality of like everyone. It really is unique with unique strengths, gifts, and whatnot. That doesn't mean you can't be part of something bigger than yourself, but to let that define you or set up parameters for success isn't really healthy when you're thinking of real individual enrichment and like growth. I just I hate seeing people get stuck in that mindset because one, it can lead to casting blame on on segments of society that actually would like you to succeed, but you've been told that they don't want you to, and just figuring out who's really playing that card, who would it, who would advance, who would make gains in their agenda for advancing that kind of ideology ultimately.
Mm.
And it's not the people that are actually suffering because they just want to improve their lives and they should. But there's people who want to keep segments of this population down for sure.
So, like, was there something that she brought to light for you that was a discovery for you, or that
Yeah,
helped to aid, I don't know, in your understanding of things at all?
definitely. She was Mexican, so she was talking about just sort of the worldview that people who grow up in families of minorities or immigrant families or people of color, um, just sort of the worldview and what they're sort of surrounded by, like this mindset that white people as a entirety do not want to see them succeed. And I was like, that's just not true on a large scale. Like
Right.
I really would hope it wasn't. Like I was like, that's a mentality that is 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 so out of. I mean, a lot of people today are so ready to categorize people. I think it's just because it's almost easier to categorize people and say, hey, okay, I can fit you into this box because that's what I've been told makes the most sense of this world that we see as so unjust. And to make sense of it, it's of course you'd want to make sense of it from a system, like a systematic viewpoint. But to say systematic oppression takes place solely on the basis of race is not true because it could have been implemented by any number of people any time. But yeah, we were just kind of working through those like identity politics, and she actually kind of she agreed with me on multiple points of like compromise is worth the hard work. Like for real change, compromise with another opposing political ideology or party actually can lead to improvement
Mm,
for people. And it was like that's what I was getting at. It's like, look, we're so divided right now. At least that's what it seems like. But we as working class or middle class people there's a lot. We're the most populous segment of this entire country. And so if we really do want something, there's nothing stopping us from really going after it. But there's there's people who don't want to see that happen, and of course they would do everything in their power to make sure that working class people don't unite. And
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that's not like this. It wasn't even like revolution talk. It was just like if you want to see real change, um, there's ways to do it. Absolutely. And we're just kind of throwing ideas out in that regard.
I think that something that's really important for us all
Mm,
to aim towards is understanding that we all live in different paradigms of thought. Like,
definitely.
so we as, passing straight white men, you know, I mean, we have the privilege, right, of not really having to worry about other kind of like intersectional thinking. Um,
Yeah.
and and so like I think that we need to like look at many different ways of thinking. Like we have to think about, okay, are we thinking, like, um, how can we approach justice from multiple paradigms, from a class consciousness paradigm, from an identity
Mm,
politics paradigm, to a nationalism paradigm? Like, do we
yeah.
care about, you know, giving more power to the federal government or to localities? Like these are all things. Like there are many different ways to frame it, and we need to. The more that we educate ourselves, the more variables there are, and the more complicated it becomes.
Mm,
And I think like you also, in my opinion, we need to like simultaneously be so aware of people's intersectional realities, because what that means is that we care about their conception of how the world is.
yeah,
and
definitely.
and that is empathy. That is putting ourselves in other people's shoes. That is practicing empathy.
Yeah.
Giving into identity politics. Like I don't I for me, identity politics, I mean, it doesn't really lead to what my version of justice is, but I am a little ant brain, you know? So,
Yeah.
like, I feel like the way that we can start to solve issues is by somehow is by being proactively empathetic, which will help us to kind of achieve this collective consciousness, where
Yeah, like
then
being able
yeah,
to look from something and some like put yourself in someone else's shoes or their mind,
yeah,
right? And
exactly.
actively say, "Hey, I get why you can view the world this way." Totally.
Yeah, I mean it's hard. I think for me it's hard. Right now I'm a grad student. I'm getting my MFA in acting.
Oh
Um,
wow, okay.
but right now I'm taking this
Cool.
intersectionality class through performance, and and there's just so there's just so much like biases that we have, that everyone has. Like when people say like, "Oh, I'm not racist. I'm not racist." The thing is that the way that society has been structured is that we have been fed propaganda where, I mean, if I was just thinking about this today. Like, there are certain kind of clothes that you feel comfortable wearing out in public, right? And
Yeah.
so like we choose certain clothes that kind of feed into our own narrative of ourselves. But like people who have different color skin, that is that's like that it is a it it's cards that minorities have been dealt that they cannot change. They can't change their, and so and we've also been conditioned to have a certain narrative over the course of hundreds of years about how to feel about people with different skin color. And so that's just baked into our cultural conversations and our dialogue. And it takes generations. I mean, we've been working at this for hundreds of years now, too. 150 years at least or so.
We talked a bit about that. Sort of societies as a whole are either low structure or high structure. Switzerland, for example, 800 years of a culture conversationally, customs. They have so many customs there. Like for everything you do, like you don't like from the stuff from the little things to like, do you take your shoes off at the door? And
Mm,
there it's either yes or no. Like you know. It's all this little stuff. We're in America, we're more low structure. We're more like there's just so many different nationalities here, backgrounds. And so you're right about that. Like, yeah, there's a ton of different worldviews coming here. How do you make that work together? It's like, okay, it's not working as great as it could, but does the Constitution give us a framework for that in terms of government and society, law, order, and prosperity? If it does, we need to get back to it even more. If it doesn't, well, then we need to get away from it. And it's like if you're looking at society as a whole on government perspectives alone, but you're talking about you were mentioning collective consciousness,
yeah.
which
Sorry.
group,
I just
no,
I,
that's right.
I just put a play there in the chat that
Hmm,
is that talks about the Constitution, and if the
hmm.
Constitution is outdated and should be revamped to consider racism and how it's been embedded in our society. It was on Broadway. It's a great play. I would recommend it to anyone, really. But
Yeah,
yeah.
what the Constitution means to me.
Hmm.
Yeah, see, I read a book recently on integrationist versus disintegrationist, which is that contrast of reformation from a perspective of using the old framework, or reformation, or more like revolution of tearing down and rebuilding. Like so, it's working from within or without. Like
Mm.
it's kind of hard to just say let's change it because we have an amendment system for that
Yeah,
built in, right?
exactly. Yeah.
Right. So it's got to be that one or the other.
Yeah.
Really, when you
In
look
the
down to
system or
the
outside the system. Yeah.
exactly. And I think because there is such a wealth disparity today, more and more people are considering the option of just changing it completely. It's like, well, it's got to be made better. It's got to be made better. And who's going to be the one to change it? Is it going to be the government? I don't see that
Well,
happening.
that's why we're here. I mean, this is what
I
converse.
know.
I mean, like I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir here, but that's why we're on here, right? That is
Yeah,
literally why we're on here and
yeah.
talking about is we want more conversation about this in the world, you know?
Yeah, some like real civil discourse, which like is not as easy to really engage in today. Because people get defensive because they've been attacked for their views on both sides through just like really harsh rhetoric or even just memes that you see from your friends on different social media. Like you can tell someone's political affiliation by one meme. Like this
I
all it
know.
takes. And it makes it like people want to fit the other side into a box. It's like I hate saying the other side even because everyone really is making an individual decision based on their values, worldview, right? So how could we boil down all these different worldviews and backgrounds and beliefs into two parties? I think it's nonsense. Two
Well,
party
yeah.
system.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Okay, so this is
Like,
another. So if you go to my YouTube channel, at the top on the banner, I have a link to this organization, Represent Us, which is all
hmm,
about passing anti corruption measures locally. And it's all about
yeah.
passing ranked choice voting which is kind of, I think, a major foothold into how we can start getting a third party legitimately involved as kind of
Yeah.
a leverage, you know.
Yeah, people who are tired of the two-party system, I think there's enough now that there could be some serious traction politically for a third party, like especially these last two elections. Just the polarity that exists is grown. I mean, at least in the public eye, and um, at least that's from what I've observed. I've only been able to vote twice now, but yeah,
So
I'll
what?
check that out for sure.
Yeah, what? So you were talking about like, was there ever a moment where you've kind of where you felt attacked for your beliefs? Like, do you have like
I, uh,
a story about that that you'd be willing to share?
yeah, well, nothing crazy. I know people all over the country have stories from last year alone, but I lost a friend last year. No, not lost a friend like they passed away, but they cut off all communication from me because of my my beliefs. Because I have cops in my family, and they're in New York, which is a pretty rough place to do police work right now. And I'm not going to get into because that's a whole that's a discussion that could be had and it needs to be talked about. I'm not saying it doesn't, but so personally, yeah, I do worry about them. And I posted one meme and they just this is a person I really liked. We had great conversations and I thought they liked me, but like I was like, hey, they just never messaged me back, and I was kind of taken aback that someone would cut me completely out. Because I know ghosting is a trend in our culture right now. Someone makes you uncomfortable or whatever. But yeah, I accepted it and just sort of said, hey, I get that this is tense times and people feel like they want to be around those who they feel like they can trust with their beliefs. And when you're getting attacked for your beliefs either side, you're going to kind of get more of a defensive kind of complex.
Mm.
Um, yeah, it just made me sad to see that play out because I didn't think it would happen to me. You know,
Yeah, you seem just like such a personable guy, you know, but see, this is the thing, is that is that people, you know, people see a meme, you know, like, or if you post something like something on Facebook, or they immediately have a reaction to that and they label you,
mm,
and they think, you know, or at
yeah,
least this is my theory of it, is they think, okay, like, this person, do I want this person in my life or not? Do I believe that this label of this person is toxic for me? And then they act accordingly. But I think that leads to my point of of thinking that we are way more than just our than any label that we have for ourselves or
yeah,
for another person. I mean, my name is Kenny. Like, I am more, I existed before my name existed, right?
yeah.
Before my name for myself existed. I was there before, and you know, I could change my name. And
That's the thing about names. It's just a sound. Literally, is it just a sound?
yeah,
And that doesn't mean it's not like tied because it does give you a place, right?
yeah, and you know, and what it does is, like, I mean, it's a thing that, you know, like, we hear other people say things about us, and we internalize that, reinforce that into our name. We construct stories about ourselves that that reinforces what our name means for us.
Yeah,
But in reality, it all changes all the time. It's always changing, and like, we label everything about ourselves. Like, that's what our society does. That's what our culture, our human culture so far, has relied on. And we're getting to a point now where it's starting to break down, which is good
yeah.
and bad. It's good, and it's also terrifying to a lot of people.
I I think that's why you will see the rise of Sigma personalities. If you study Alpha, Omega, like Sigma, like behavior, at least from men and women, how they act in a society. Like there was a study done of mice in the 1970s that put them in like they put them with a limited space resource like um, habitat, and they populated to a point where there were so many of them that it was just so overcrowded that there were a certain group of males that became very aggressive, and there was a certain group of males that there was no more. They reached a point where there was no more marriage, at least no more breeding of the mice, and we're seeing marriage rates decline. There was also a group of those mice that withdrew completely from that society because they're like they see the food as being fought over, so they do the most basic tasks. They eat, they work, they sleep, and they groom themselves. And the experiment called them the beautiful ones. They were they were like ghosts to the colony. They tended to themselves because they just saw the community just just fighting for this tiny little prize, in a sense, the last bit of food or the last mate or the last this, and they just checked out. And I think we're seeing more and more men and women checking out. And I think those men and women need to date because it's like they can appreciate someone who knows what that's like to be like, to not check out of like not caring, but just be like, you're not like, I'm not going to throw myself into the rat race for the rat
Exactly, the
race
rat
sake.
race, literal rat race. Exactly.
Yeah. Like Bob Marley, that's one of my favorite songs of his is Rat Race. He's just like, look at this, like, look at this rat race. It was, I think it saddened him even back then to see it. Like, he saw what it was, and I think it's gotten worse personally. I think the glorification, it's almost like enabled narcissism to be somehow valuable when it's actually an incredibly toxic personality trait. And it's not saying that it's evil, it's just like it's toxic energy, you know?
Yeah.
But that's what rewards in this world.
So for you, like it seems like you have, you know, thought a lot about presence and thought a lot about, you know, your place in everything and also the
Definitely.
rat race. And so for you, like what are the things that you're butting up against in your life and what are you finding difficult?
I studied my beliefs, mentality, behavior, and I realized that I do act and operate in this society as a Sigma male. I'm self-employed, so I just do rideshare, grocery stuff. I paint. I do tree farm work. Like I do work that I work on. I do it on my own. I like to make my own hours, and
Your own
um,
boss, right?
yep. So because I've managed a restaurant before. I know the job. I know, like, I'm comfortable working around people, but increasingly just because of um, yeah, just I guess it's not as much social anxiety. It's just I work better on my own. I feel more comfortable on my own. But what I'm coming up against is struggling to meet people that think like I do, because echo chambers now, bring them all online. They bring their beliefs and they go and hash it out on the screen rather than a meeting hall or a debate hall or a bar. Even like, you can still meet people out there. It's getting, things are opening up again. Um, but like real organized like change is still available in the academic world. But if you're not in college, you don't really have access to that, right?
Right.
Like, I'm not in college right now, so I don't have access to Socratic circles or whatever.
Right.
I have to. It's like, but it's teaching me to be resourceful. Learning to be resourceful with social influence, because social influence as a Sigma doesn't mean a thing to me. I don't care about social status. I can look at a person and realize what they like. I can see them as 12 different paths they could have ended up in being, but I'm fascinated by why they chose the path they did. And I I've just studied human nature my entire life, and I'm naturally intuitive, so I kind of log all that in my head, and I think about why people do what they do. But I see a society, like you said, it's starting to really break in portions, and that's evident from the unrest. Unrest is a great indicator of society's worst parts finally beginning to, because they've gone unresolved, obviously.
Hmm.
But again, I also am very individualistic. I think we do make the choices we make. We have to own up to, in a sense that, we have a will. We have we have been given a mind that we can. And again, as some people won't look out for you, some people won't take care of you like they were supposed to. And that's the hard part, is that not everyone has the confidence because they weren't given the support. But I want to see people grow in confidence and know that they can succeed, and they don't have to succeed to a certain level to feel accomplished. Like, seriously, like, I saw this kid was playing piano tonight, and he said his dad said it was a effeminate playing, like, instrument, and I was like, play me a song. And this dude played like this incredible song about the feeling of what his ex was like, because she was apparently some kind of witch or something, and it was really well put together. It was really good. And I told him that, and he just lit up. He just, like, because he probably hadn't heard that. And I was like, some people just don't hear that, and like that one thing can change. Like, it's amazing what that can do. And like, I'm not saying I have that power, but everyone has that power to, like, literally pick someone up,
Well,
like, for real.
that's it. I and yeah, everyone has a light in them, and
Hmm.
there are 8 billion different kinds of light, for each person. And so, like, how can we all try to help each other find our own light? How can we help others to find their light? And how can we ask others to help us find ours? You know?
Yeah, yeah. I think, I'm different from the the worldview of my generation, is that truth is more relative. I don't ascribe to that. I do believe that there is an actual discernible, um, greater moral conduct sort of mentality you can adapt. Like, there are just things that are objectively, when you look at it, right to do, like being, like, honesty, generosity, just different things, right? But I think what most people say is, okay, that's discernible, right? Obviously, murder is a violation of nature. It's wrong. It should be punishable. But I think what a lot of people are looking for and lack is the power to do good. They feel like, and that's to me is the core issue that I seek understanding on, is what is it about the the temptation of doing something is wrong, because it does still feel good, in a sense that, it's that, I think of Star Wars, right? The temptation and downfall of Anakin Skywalker, for example. He was lured in by love for he wanted to save his wife from a death he felt like he couldn't learn from what he thought was good, or from what he was told was right, from people who he trusted with his life to look after him and mentor him. But he was offered that by a very evil, corrupt, sinister, in the form of altruistic, interest. And it's just like, you know, these we're talking about the very core of human nature, and this goes beyond just psychology and sociology. This is like this these are the big questions that I think people are afraid to talk about nowadays, because it makes people uncomfortable. Yeah, because they're
Yeah,
facing up to, like,
that's
the big
exactly it.
questions, and that's hard. Like, it's not hard. It's not as hard as you think. That's what I want people to know. Is like, let's bring that back, where, like, those kind of conversations can be held with honesty, like compassion. Like, it doesn't have to be this shouting match of intellectual, prowess, or emotionally manipulating to win your argument. Like, really just hashing it out. And that's why I'm passionate about debates, but, like, in the context of interpersonal,
Hmm.
like just good old fashioned, like, playing, because if you argue for something you don't believe in, you'll usually end up with a better perspective on your own beliefs. because you kind of are able to say, okay, if I don't believe this, but I try and defend it, I could see how someone else could believe it. Like from anything to, okay, I'm going to argue for the other political party. I'm going to argue for a faith that I don't agree with. I'm going to argue for this, this, and this. It's it's incredibly valuable. I found it's incredibly valuable.
Do you have any books that you would recommend that people read?
Oh yeah, lots. Right
Please,
now?
I mean, yeah, please. I
No, no,
mean,
no. I don't want to drone on and on. Hmm. I I would say you should be reading one good fictional book. Try Tolkien or C.S. Lewis, or Jane Austen, something that enhances your conversation, because the vocabulary alone just it helps you think and be more appreciative of the little things in life. I think the little gestures, the subtleties of people's words, their conversation, it gets you in that kind of mindset. I would say read one spiritual book. Explore why people subscribe to um, like faith, because this is a world that is incredibly chaotic, and faith offers people a rock
for
that
you,
is held up by, yeah.
yeah, for
And so
you.
I'd say just,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to ask you what books, what
yeah.
spiritual books would do you read to find peace?
I read I read I do study the scriptures, the Torah, so that's like Old Testament, right? And I do read the New Testament. I've read through it many times, and it's amazing to me. Like I've read the Quran as well, and I have read, um I went and studied Buddhism with, I actually had a Bible study with a Buddhist, and we just hashed it out. Like I wanted to know, like, let me know, like, what do you guys, you because they have scriptures too. And for me, it was like, there's just something about, because I've never read anything like the Bible, because it has an incredibly diverse amount of predictions and fulfillments, and factor of it alone is incredible. Um, but yeah, I'd say, and then read like a psychology book on like mental health, like why people struggle with the things that they do, because everyone struggles, whether they like to admit it or not. Read a book on someone who's been through some serious stuff. Read a book written by like a former drug addict, alcoholic, someone who's been through trauma, like childhood trauma, emotional neglect. Like, find somebody who's been through something you've been through, and then read their experience. I'd say those three, like
Hmm.
something that's personal for you, something that gets you a nice escape into a fictional world that can enhance your experience in the real world, and then read some scriptures, find out why people believe what they believe, and that it's not just because some people just took it up one day, not because they were told to, because they really wanted to get to the bottom of why. I mean, why everyone wants to know, right? The big questions. But yeah,
Let me ask you another question. I know I love, yeah, you're, um, first of all, like, I just want to comment, like, the cadence of your voice is very easy to listen to. You're very
thank you.
articulate, and so it's just very easy to just glide along this wave here. But would you be willing to share a story about yourself, a memory that you feel like is the
Mm.
summation of who you are or who you are today? Usually, a first instinct
Wow.
is good to follow there.
Yeah, honestly, that's that's so hard to pick one story. It's just like,
Well, you can
okay,
choose two. That's fine. We're in no rush here.
yeah, I appreciate that. Hmm. So I'm not a great storyteller, in the sense that I'm often so focused on other people. I don't really, because, okay, so kind of one of the reasons you said there, my cadence is easy to listen to and follow along with. I don't know if you study Meyer-Briggs type theory. Have you ever
Hmm.
gotten into that? So I'm an INFJ, which is 1% of the population, which is sort of that personality that everyone thinks is like this all-knowing mystic. It's not true. It's a stereotype. Don't believe it. But what it means is I'm a highly intuitive empath, so I absorb emotion. I literally feel what other people feel in my physical body. Like if someone is stressed, I literally can become stressed and feel that same pressure in my chest because it's how I interact with the world. I prioritize people and emotion. As a man, that's very difficult because men are typically not as emotionally, not that they're not emotional, it's just that they're not emotionally driven or they're not emotionally wired
Or
to
at least
interact with everything. Right?
we're not supposed to be. Men are not
Right, right,
supposed to be.
right. They're supposed to be more rational, more holding a frame, right? So I think, yeah, man. Okay, there's one story I had. I was in college and I was having this conversation with a friend of mine. Her name was Grace, and I was just talking to her about. She was like, "Hey, you need to watch out," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, there's a lot of girls after you right now." And I actually I almost had a panic attack because I was like, "What are you talking about?" And it was just like it was because I had one. I don't read up on people's signals because I don't put any stock by them in the sense that like, okay, you could be attracted to someone, but the laws of attraction these days are so, in a sense, not shallow, but they're so foreign to me in a sense. Like I feel like an alien, and I think one of the things that showed me was that I have a hard time trusting myself to trust others. I realized that I was like, I almost viewed it as like people were trying to control me or possess me in a sense. I've only had one relationship and it was 2 months long. Otherwise, I've been single my entire life because I'm a perfectionist in one sense, but I'm also like I will not date for anything less than like what I feel is true love. And in a it's so foreign to try and live out that kind of life in today's world, but it kind of gave me the encouragement that you can be physically attractive to many people, but you should only choose one. It's like I really think that like commitment is something that's just not as strong in our it just it kind of it just made me sad, and I think that just showed what we've been talking about with this like compassion for others, like actually trying to connect with them. I was like, just be confident within yourself once you know your strengths and weaknesses, but you have to be introspective and acknowledge your best and worst nature. Like you have to be ready to acknowledge what you don't like, because it's only by doing that that you can really pursue your strengths. You know, like really pursue what you were made to do. And yeah, so that story kind of triggered a growth of um, just self reflection and pursuing an understanding of my own nature better.
Is there another story? Because you said that you were feeling like you may have other ones.
There's a yeah. I don't think I yeah again I'm more of a rambler, right? I speak in abstract concepts and all this different stuff. I'm terrible at like going from story, people, places, and stuff because it's more about again my psychological framework is to evaluate and give back out what I've processed in terms of you know what
It's
I see.
I think that
It's
to jump in here, um, you know, one of the things that we kind of study in grad school for acting is that
yeah,
I have very similar tendencies. Thinking, theorizing, and thinking of things in the abstract in one sense helps to try to understand the whole human condition under one umbrella so that we can bring people together, right? In
Yeah,
another sense, it's an amazing defense mechanism for us not confronting some things in ourselves.
definitely. Yeah, because you pursue that umbrella that makes the most sense to you. Maybe not just makes the most sense. Maybe it feels right. It answers the big questions like with satisfaction, right? What makes it powerful is personal experience. When it actually becomes validated in front of you, not just with other people, but for yourself first, and then when it's both yourself, other people, to reinforce that, it's pretty amazing to see. And I've had a few of those experiences. Um, I mean, otherworldly stuff. I mean, this is stuff I don't even think I could really put into words properly, and I will try to one day. Um,
It sounds like you will write an amazing book one day.
I'd like to. I really would. I've always loved writing because I couldn't do it with by hand, but when I can type, I can actually keep up with my thoughts. It's impossible to do it by hand. But yeah, I'll need a good editor. Definitely, I'll need a good editor. Yeah.
But well, I want to make sure that we don't stray away from another story that uh you know so yeah,
I mean, if you want to hear a story, I'll tell you about. I was in Philadelphia. I was 13 years old. I was with a group of people uh, in my church, and we went to this outreach of um, no, it wasn't even really an organized thing. We just went out in the city and we brought lunches out and we just sat and had conversations with homeless people. We weren't throwing Bibles or cards with them. We literally just were going out to have a conversation. And I had this conversation with this old woman, probably 60s. She told me she had a family, a home, a career. And here she was sitting by herself for who knows how long. And I was, because I know people sometimes signal that they really care about the homeless. It's like, well, I didn't categorize her as homeless. I saw something in her that, she didn't, I guess all right, so I'm straying here, I know, but it's the build up to the end part of the story, which is, um, we had taken some time in that morning we took time together just to pray and ask for a chance to meet somebody, to give them, if we could give hope or encouragement by any means, just to, one person, that we would be content. And we took some time to meditate and be silent and just to listen. And I had a name kind of come into my head, and the one of my one of my friends there encouraged to say if you are visualizing, or if you have a name, or if you have some kind of object that's sort of becoming like the forefront of your mind, like when you're imagining something, whether it's a scene, play, words, it literally takes the focus, right? I couldn't get the name Henry out of my head, and we went out all day. I never met a Henry. I got back that night, was downstairs, just relaxing after the day. This guy walks into the church with this guy's mid 40s. Um, he's got a lot of tattoos. I think there was a couple. I think he spent some time in prison. Just like a really just a broken dude. Because I mean I don't know brokenness to that level, from a sense of like I grew up I had a good family, and I'm very privileged to have that. But he came in. He's like, yeah, I've never been to church before. I've never wanted to be, but I'd rather be here than drinking again. I need to get sober. Can you help me? And they're like, yeah, man, we got you. They gave him a place to stay, and they're like, hey, man, what's your name? And he's like, Henry. They came downstairs, and my pastor told me that, and I about jumped out of my socks, man. I was like, I the universe is rarely so lazy because coincidences, people say, okay, that could be a coincidence, Um, people say that if there really is a creator, that he's impersonal, but the name, I had someone's name brought to me, and I wasn't even a part of the actual interaction with this gentleman, but it was more that like incredible awareness of these small details that one that we take into acknowledgement for others, their name, their likes, their dislikes, the little things they do, right? People love when we notice that stuff. And so just wondering, it just made me realize like if we care about that stuff, it's because, you know, I do believe it's because our creator cares about that stuff very much so, to an extent that there is even a proverb that says he knows the exact number of hairs on each head, even the bald guys. Because I don't doubt I'll be that one day. It's in the family.
Man,
But yeah, man,
you are such.
I just wanted to share that because I've gone back and forth in my life. It's never easy because um, faith in is a tough thing to come to when it's hard to trust people to begin with if you've been through stuff. So trusting someone you cannot see or hear like a person is is seemingly insane, and you get labeled a schizophrenic. But you know what? I'll take that label if it means that because that experience, that story will never. I can't forget that. Like that literally it it not just blew my mind. Like it still sticks with me to this day as a personal experience that I cannot disregard as um, part of why I believe what I believe.
Mm.
It was, yeah.
Oh, what a lovely. Oh my God.
I
What do you,
appreciate you listening. You're a good listener,
oh
man.
my, dude, I love it. I'm actually addicted to it. I'm actually addicted to it. Like it's,
No,
you know,
it's good. I mean, that's you're gonna make a good actor if you can listen to your coaches.
yeah, yeah, that's right.
No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding. That's
Well,
great.
well, uh, I'll ask one more question because I'm just like dying to know.
Yeah, go for it, man.
What do you, where do you think your trust issues stem from? Is there a moment in your story where that kind of was ground zero for you?
Definitely. I mean, there's like the little things, right? I mean, I think back to middle school. I kind of drifted out of a friend group in the sense that, but it felt at the time like they kind of just disappeared, stopped asking me to hang out, and I wasn't as emotionally mature. Obviously, none of us are at that age, but I didn't really pursue friendships. I didn't understand that give and take as much, so I figured some people maybe they were waiting to be asked at some point, but after a certain amount of time passes, you just think, oh, maybe they just don't want to be friends anymore. That was just some like so. I had a friend in high school who I cared about a lot. Um, he was from Philly, grew up in rough family, a lot of just drug abuse, alcoholism. But he was the nicest kid you'd ever meet, but he carried around a weight of anxiety that he told me was like that type that like feels like there's a stone on your chest, like physically. And I was like, I that's that could be derived from a lot of sources, but to have that much physical reaction, I'm like, man,
Ugh. Ugh.
but being me, I wanted to know why. We ended up having a lot of good conversations, and he actually really started improving. His GPA went up senior year by like zero point 0.6 because he accepted certain things were not his fault in his life, but he also got confidence to pursue his passion, which was writing. It was music, and he produced some songs and wrote some really good poetry. But there were some things. I mean, there was some serious trauma in his life, some serious things haunting him, and he um he ended up taking his life at the age of 22, and that that was 3 years ago, just a little over 3 years ago, and I found myself like there's the five stages of grief, shock, just disbelief, like if denial, like how could that couldn't have happened, and then when you realize it did happen, it the depression stage lasted 2 years for me. Of This is the symptoms of depression just did not leave, no matter whatever situation I was in. But I have come to accept that. I mean, because I felt responsible for him because of my personality type. Is I have people call it a messiah complex, and I have had to kind of emotionally mature out of it. But this sort of feeling that, like, while I'm not ultimately responsible for other people, I care intensely about their not just their health or their wealth, but like their their core self, like their actual like purpose, place, identity, past, future. Like if and that's not easy for me to do, just because I am struggling so much with my
Hmm.
own demons. But when I when I when I'm operating in a healthy mental health state, which I have been for some time, and I'm getting back to it. I finally accepted in the past this past few months. I got sober. I had been drinking, uh, daily dependency drinking, but I got sober and just came to an acceptance that the it wasn't my choice to make, and I miss him every day. But I want to honor his memory by staying sober and increasing mental health awareness wherever I can by understanding myself and getting that message out that if you need help, it's okay to ask for it. And if you have no one to ask, then maybe it's time to pray, because it's like and that's not like it's going to fix everything for you kind of advice. It's like, there's people that really want to help, and there are programs out there, and it is okay to ask for help. It's seriously okay. Like, you're not less of a man or a woman, and just making that available for more people, like just the basic stuff they need, because a lot of this stuff can be situational. People don't, but again, some people just literally just need a person to listen to. Like, that's it. They don't need a place to stay, or they don't need food, water, or like medicine. They literally just need someone to say, I get you. Like, give them eye contact, affirm that you hear them, because so many people get ignored, you know?
Hmm.
Just, yeah, and that's something I do plan on writing about, just processing through mental health issues with that. I mean, I've had firsthand experience with PTSD symptoms, and I know a lot of people go through just going through those things changes your perspective on the world, because I can see what people carry easier now, because I've aged a lot these past few years, both mentally and emotionally. So I think it increases your compassion to really put yourself um, in that mind frame of, yeah. I I'm droning on here, man, but
No, no. I think that no. I mean, this is. I mean, it's just such a. Uh, it's just such a pleasure to be able to, you know, have a space here for you to talk and to process some things, and
I
you
really
know,
appreciate it. I do.
I mean,
I like what you do. Like this, I've only run into one person on YouTube who does stuff like this, and actually no, it wasn't even like an Omegle thing. It was just talking about this kind of stuff with someone like a stranger. But like I really do appreciate that.
I
Like
mean,
it's
this is the thing is that like, uh, what what I it really all it takes is to just be present.
yeah,
You
definitely.
know, I mean,
Yeah. No, that's like if you know somebody who's lost someone recently, best thing you can do for them is literally just go sit by them. You don't have to say a thing. You really don't like because sometimes like words really aren't enough sometimes, and that's not to say that you can't say encouraging things because that's our instinct, right? Is to comfort. But sometimes literally just being there, definitely. Like if you've ever had that, if you've ever been at a hospital, you just go and sit with somebody. People love that.
yeah, because it's yeah, like sometimes offering advice or, I mean, there's a often there is a feeling of fixing or having to do something that
Yeah,
really is unnecessary sometimes. Um, I mean,
yeah. That's
yeah, it's just cool to hang out with you.
I've heard that that's one of the reasons girls get frustrated with their guys is that they'll tell them something about their problems and the guys are like, well, here's how we can fix it. He's like, no, I just want you to empathize, sympathize.
Yeah,
It's like that's not guys' strengths, right? Because they want to play to their strengths to fix it, but sometimes you play to your weakness. It shows strength if you can do that,
well,
because it's
yeah, well, and I think like I was talking about earlier, it's important to know all the tools that are possible and when to use the tools.
yeah,
you know and you know for certain people, some people need a kick in the butt and like that.
tough love, tough
Yeah,
love.
some people really like just having someone be present, and also knowing how to articulate and
Mm.
navigate that is something that I'm working on big time.
Yeah,
Especially
dude.
my jokes. Like,
Yeah,
I mean, I have like my humor is particularly dark. So like whenever I
sardonic, like.
yeah, that's a good word, actually. That's a great word. I don't think I've ever said that word ever. Sardonic. I'm gonna look that up. Yeah, but I really like dark humor, and some people just don't know how to handle that, and so I think that for me and understanding my way of navigating, talking to people, for me, I have to kind of, especially in this very sensitive culture, which is great. You know, I I need to kind of tone it back.
It's
So,
well, it's yeah, comedy is a great bridge,
oh, I love it.
seriously.
I do. I do.
Like it especially for people who've been through stuff because not to like joke about it, but like if you've been through it as well, like self-debilitating humor in a sense or even
Yeah.
self-deprecating, sorry,
Mhm.
self-deprecating humor is the more accurate term. It's like people can appreciate when you try and make something humorous that's you think you couldn't make humorous because a lot of comedians I think a lot of comedians are smarter than people think.
Oh,
They're very intelligent, intuitive people who look at everything and not see everything as a joke, but they can see how they could make everything into a joke
well,
because
yeah.
we're just ridiculous.
Well, yeah, exactly. Well, the way that people view the world so seriously is
Mm,
absurd. We are little ants on a little piece of dirt, you know,
yeah.
orbiting a little flame that's orbiting a light bulb that's orbiting. There are trillions of light bulbs in this one little marble. Like, I mean, that's pretty much, and
That's that's why I feel like an alien, man, is because I've always been serious. Like just like thinking everything through, overanalyzing, not just for the sake of overanalyzing to be smart, but like again, that's what's the beautiful thing about it though. Myers Briggs personalities, they complement each other as a community. We need people who have great sense of humor and can take life like as a not as a joke, but like very lighthearted, young at heart. And we need old souls. We need old souls to kind of balance that. need people have to go to someone they know has an old soul mindset. But we need both. They're both equally important, and that's like what I want to say is like, you know, that we uphold these strengths and weaknesses as universal in some sense. It's like everyone has unique strengths and weaknesses they can find. It's
Yeah.
it
I think there is something to be said for taking things seriously too, right? Because we live in this very, I mean, I'm not saying anything new here, but like the societies that we live in, there are particular games and rules we need to play by to be able
yeah.
to get ahead, to be able to succeed by societal standards, and also which bleeds into our own idea of what success is in our own lives, so that we can get, so that we can have some kind of like power in our lives, some kind of control.
Yeah, I mean it's purpose, right?
Yeah,
Everyone
right.
has that
Yeah, yeah, and but
desire.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's a human thing, like power
Yeah,
dynamics and control, and that is inherent to human nature. But then,
definitely. Yeah.
you like zoom out, and it's like we're all going to be dead. Like in a few billion years, the sun's going to expand to a red giant, and we'll be consumed by that. If we're not off this planet anyway. So it's like it's this weird dichotomy of everything is so important, every detail, like is just, I mean, it's beautiful. It really, like, the whole complexity of everything is just fucking beautiful, but it's also just absurd. It's absurd
It
and like
seems like a
meaningless.
terrible dichotomy.
Yeah, yeah. It's like
It's
everything
like
is beautiful and everything is just sublime and morbid all at the same time, and it's, I mean, what a
I mean
ride.
that I mean you see the contrast of like pure good and evil. I mean you've seen Lord of the Rings, right? Have you seen Lord of the Rings? When those orcs get killed, you're like, yeah, because they're just foul. They're just ugly and foul. And it's like that's almost and then when you see the elves, you're just like you think, why couldn't humans be like that? Like if we dedicated all of our time into just like making everything beautiful and freeing ourselves from toxic stuff. It's like, well, it's almost like maybe we were meant to be that way in design, but it's that, yeah, the good and evil within us, which part we act on, why we act on it, how much does that rule our lives, and you can grow in either or, right? Because you can be an evil person but have no money or power to really do anything about it. You can be a good person with the same thing, and that's influence isn't really the most important part. It's just yeah, I mean, this is stuff I talk about with very few people because it I don't get defensive, but I really challenge what people think, and not everyone likes that.
Well, I think, like, to now assume what it sounds like your role is with some people is like I I re- I, I used to think a lot about like good and evil, but I really have started to think about that much less lately. I think, we're humans. You know like what.
Like, is there's still stuff you'd think was like objectively right or wrong? Like murder obviously is wrong,
Well,
and
I mean, this
like
is the thing: is like if someone comes into your house and starts raping your wife, if you
yeah,
kill them, I mean, that's not completely wrong. And this is the
well, because your
crazy.
motive is to protect.
Right. So,
Yeah,
like, I mean, so basically, my answer is it's complicated, and there are things. I think it's circumstantial. A lot of these things are circumstantial, but I think, obviously you want to avoid violence. Like, to me, if the world worked in a way that
yeah.
kind of, like, if everyone, like, in my opinion of the actions that I want to take in life, I want to live a life similar to Gandhi. I want to live a life where that is proactively empathetic and uses, that is revolutionary, um, innovative, brings people together, you know, but I don't want to be like Gandhi in that like he had he like got married at like 13, had a kid at 13, and then he had like a kid every 10 years or something, abused his wife. So I mean, like, obviously I don't want to be like Gandhi in that way, but I mean, I
It,
want
but okay,
I want to,
without
yeah.
no, it's that's innate in people to want to do good when they know they have the capacity for it, right? It's not as like for me, it's not as much about like just pure right or wrong like a list. It's literally the motivation of your being. Like if you are seeking to live in a way that is like not like a holier than thou mentality, but just like a because being meek, being gentle does not mean you're harmless. I mean, I've seen some of the strongest people I know, they wouldn't they're just they're just
Well,
so physically and emotionally and mentally gentle, but they're so strong at the same time. It seems like a dichotomy.
yeah. Well,
And
it sounds like you don't view them or label them as weak at all. So, you know
no,
what I mean? So
no.
it's like I think that's where the labels kind of are just so fucked up, right? Like the
Mm,
idea of meek and like feeble and weak. It's like why even have that? This person, these
yeah.
people are emotionally intelligent and have fortitude because they've done this, this, and this. Factually, they
Mm,
have withstood a lot of trauma. And so, why even have a label to it? Why
mm.
even have? I mean, I think the labels fuck us up. I think the labels fuck us up.
Labels are useful in the only, the extent that they help us kind of understand what people belong to. And, obviously if you're trying to go to a yoga class and there's no sign out front that says yoga, you could walk into some
Right.
place you don't want to
That
be
that's
in.
true. That's true. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Labeling,
But
but like I think you're talking about like identity labeling.
exactly.
Like, okay,
Yes.
you're this or this, so that
Yes.
automatically means this.
Yeah. That.
That's like generalization, identification, right?
Yeah. I
That's the
agree with.
worst.
I agree with all of this. Yes.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so
I mean,
it's for me,
we need to be able to navigate the world. We need to know, like, oh, there's a signpost that says, like, yeah, if none of the streets have any, signs, of course that's stupid. Or that
yeah,
we'll see. No, saying stupid, that's a label in itself. But like, yeah, having signs, not having any street signs all over the place is not useful.
yeah.
It's not useful to categorize, to put people in boxes, to put ourselves in boxes, because that just limits the potential of everyone and everything in ourselves. And why limit anyone at all? And
I have a I have a I don't have a it's not a nihilistic view. It's just a finite because there's finite and infinite aspects to our being, right? Because physically we're temporal, but we have the capacity to grasp infinite ideas. Why would a finite creature be so drawn to ideas that are infinite? I think it shows that we do death is sort of unnatural in the sense that how could you go like, it's such a utter contradiction, and some people avoid thinking about it at all costs. Some people make a philosophy of it. I ran into a book in Barnes and Noble that was like the philosophy of death. This Roman literally meditated about his death every single
is
morning.
that Marcus Aurelius?
I don't think it's
Oh,
old, but
okay.
I'm sure he probably wrote on that too. Just
Meditations.
it's just you know this there's this like I eternal things to me are are out of my grasp because I do have a finite mind.
Right.
But I don't see human because human potential is one thing, but human purpose is another. Because purpose gives purpose and potential are wrapped in your identity, but you're not limiting anyone's. Because again, people's real potential is. I mean, other people can support you, right? Other people support you on your way, absolutely. But like, if you want to be the best biochemist in the world, you can pursue it with all your being. You might not make it, but you can still pursue it, and that gives you purpose. So people who meditate for hours on the day, they deny themselves certain things. It might not be because they're trying to be the best, but they're committed to improving themselves, and their belief systems are so important to them they wouldn't change for anybody. Like I love trying to navigate this world, but I also know that people believe what they believe for very strong reasons. And like there's things that everyone believes for a reason that they will never tell you. And like they'll tell you some things that they maybe want you to hear, and doesn't mean you can't relate and maybe dig deeper, but everyone's got walls. Everyone's just in a one sense, it's like every adult you see is just a kid trying to make it. Like we do make that transition at some point. I was like, okay, yeah, I have to actually do something in the world now.
Mm.
And it's not easy, but finding a group of people that really, the stuff you care about, they care about, but also the stuff that you don't care about, the stuff that you don't think about. Because hearing opinions that you don't hear often is great for it, growing. Because
Yeah.
if you're in an echo chamber with people who never challenge what you think, I mean, it's not that that's wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong, but you're almost limiting your potential. Because it's like new areas of thought that like, okay, maybe it's not wrong to. I'm not saying you're wrong to.
Well, yeah, I know, I can see you getting caught up, caught up in this right now. But like, I mean,
Yeah.
my opinion of that, I agree with you. My opinion is that if you're not putting yourself in an uncomfortable situation to grow,
Mm,
you're doing yourself and society and your culture a disservice
yeah.
because you are limiting your light. You are limiting your the beauty that you can gift to other people by just being yourself, by just being
Yeah.
present in the world, doing what you love to do.
Yeah.
And it's uh, yeah, we're using different terminology, but I think the essence of what we we believe is the same in that what you said is that identity determines what you believe and what you strive determines like the direction of your potential. My belief is that if you allow yourself to be literally like if you are able to completely relinquish your ego,
Mm,
then what's left is pure presence. And if you want to do something in pure presence, then you will be led to the thing that is most holy, which is your light, which is divine action. And I think that divine action is where we're is
well, that's our divide. Is
you know
that some people see that I mean, because we do have energy as human beings. I believe we do have souls. I don't know what you believe about that, in the sense that like the immaterial is like it's very very noticeable. Like the spark. Animals don't have it like people do. There's something different about human kind that separates us from every other creature on this planet. And to me, I believe in intelligent design for a reason. And I think, to me I like what you said about being selfless, because, looking past your own ego to see that your gifts can be, your presence can go out into the world and make a strong difference. And I'm almost our divide here is that I believe that that power, that identity is 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 impossible to the extent that it makes a lasting and permanent and progressive effect without divine intervention. In the sense that like I don't believe that humans don't have a will. I believe we have a will But I don't believe we're ultimately self-determinant because, I mean, look how many people in this world, look how many things, like there's so many things we can't control. We can control ourselves. We still make those choices we do to say what we do and think what we do. And yeah, I mean, this stuff's driving at the core of human nature, and people have never agreed cohesively on this stuff. And I don't think they ever will, because
Yeah.
it's different psychological frameworks too that you're talking about here. Because I don't discredit that. That's a real science. That is a real. I mean, your being has been formulated from millions of internal stimuli that have developed over incredibly complex time, and to me, that's intelligent creation is indicative of an intelligent creator, and that knowledge is the knowledge that I seek.
Mm.
And that's probably the most terrifying kind of knowledge because you're it's like trying to hunt. It's like you see a lion in the wild, and you're like, yeah, I'm gonna chase that. I think that'd be fun. Maybe he
Mm.
talks. It's just maybe I'm playing with fire here, but I'm just always been drawn to that. Like just like even at times when I wanted nothing to do with like say an organized religion, I was always incredibly drawn to this idea that there was like actually a spiritual being that was not just present but wise and personal, not impersonal, personal in the sense that has emotions, has a intelligence, has a mind that is not that is only hidden to the extent that we hide it from our own hearts because there's some things that are self-evident, I think. But that's just my view, and I don't mean to preach here on you.
No, no, I don't think you are at all. No.
Like there's some things about humans that are evident that like everyone can just say, yeah. Like we like we've talked about multiple things already tonight about that, and my memory is not as great at recalling those things. Just yeah, just like sharing and like again, my mind's off in the clouds again.
Mm.
My train of thought just took a yeah. That happens a lot. I'll run out of words because my thought train can't keep up. No, my words can't really keep up. That's the problem.
Mm. Yeah, our minds really are our story creator, and I think I'm learning more and more that we really like to have our story creation tool pumping at all times, but it's it also distances ourselves from just like being still. There's a really good movie called The Sound of Metal that I just watched.
Hmm.
That's kind of about this, finding stillness. Um, you know, I'd recommend it. It's yeah,
What's the
it's
longest time you've ever like sat or stood stationary? Just a random question.
yeah, it's a great question. I mean, it's not long. Um,
Mm.
I was just thinking about that today. I was on a walk. I was really just trying to. Actually, it's funny. Like one thing that I've been realizing that I have an issue with is when I'm walking and I'm just like going at my own pace, which is like actually a slow tempo. And when someone is walking behind me, I always feel the need to either stop and go sit somewhere or to like speed up so that they don't pass me. And I was like, you know what? I am just going to walk at my own pace and let the people pass me. And it like actually was induced a lot of anxiety in me. I was like, "Oh my
Hmm.
god, this is so fucking simple. My little fucking ant brain can't handle someone walking past me like going the same direction. So like if they're, like that just but if someone passes me the opposite direction, it's fine. I have to say
Yeah.
I feel the need to say hi and smile and but walking behind me, if
Hmm.
I'm walking slowly and they're kind of walking slow too, it's like this weird tempo thing that I'm like, what the fuck? Anyway, so
No,
to get to
I've
to answer your question, I
yeah, yeah.
not long. I think I can find stillness and contentment for maybe like 2 minutes, maybe at most. But then other things start happening. I always feel the need to do something, or my mind gets caught up. But 2 minutes is a long time, I think. In my opinion.
Hmm. That's interesting. That thing you mentioned about the walking cracks me up because I've thought about that too. I that was more before I got the confidence I have today. Um, Now, I mean, I recognize that they're probably just as worried. If they are worried about it, I just, I maintain a calm frame wherever I am because I want people to feel calm. Because like, some people say the loudest person controls the room, but the other person who's controlling the room is the calmest person in the room. The person who's literally so centered that everyone else is like someone who's approachable, someone who clearly is relaxed but confident. And like not arrogant, just but confident. And that's hard. That takes time. That takes discipline. That takes a lot of tough work, but it's worth it. Like that. But yeah, stillness for me, I love. I mean, I can sit in a pine forest for an hour, just sit out there and like, because I've trained my mind to like I don't have social media. I don't do things that I know will. I mean, I do some things I know will decrease my attention span, like video games. But I really care a lot about fighting to keep my mental health in my mind, but keep it vital as well because it is a gift. Like it is the 100 billion neuron organ that not a single computer in the world, no matter how intelligent you are, can compete with, and you can use it for incredible good. And it's like training for a marathon, but it's worth it. I'm fighting for my mind, because mental illness doesn't stop in a sense. It doesn't discriminate with people. But yeah, I think when I write that book, I want to write about just sort of going to the depths and back of what mental illness does to someone, and then all the things that you know. I'm still kind of planning it out, but
There's I wrote that The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron.
yeah, that sounded. Her name sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's an amazing book for rediscovering your creativity, and
Hmm.
it's a great kind of way to start getting into like a habitual writing routine, if you are interested. So that's
Yeah,
there for you
definitely.
as a
Oh,
resource for you. Um,
hmm.
but well, this has just been. I did not expect to talk for over an hour. How long has this been? An hour and a
I think
half.
over an hour.
It's amazing.
Are you gonna edit this?
Nope, it's all raw. I
All
just put
right.
it up. Yeah.
All right.
um,
Awesome.
but
Wait, let me.
yeah. So, do you before we go, are there any kind of last things that you'd like to say, or to the audience out there, the gigantic millions of people?
I honestly, I think what I would say to like whoever does hear this, honestly, like I know, like everyone wants to feel wanted. Everyone wants to feel part of a community. That's healthy. That's normal. I encourage people that if you don't believe that truth exists, that's fine. But if you do believe that like there really could be truth out there, never ever ever stop looking for it. And like never let anyone else tell you that you can't find it. And when you do find it, don't let anyone ever take that away from you, because it's a treasure that cannot be taken from you. Um, yeah, honestly, that's it's kind of the heart of what I've been trying to say tonight.
What you've been saying, not what you've been saying.
Fair.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Give your
Fair.
yeah. Yeah, man.
Appreciate that. Yeah.
Well, so do you have I guess like for some reason I was thinking like you have a blog or something. But you never said anything like that. Um
No, like I said, I'm kind of a more or less a ghost in this society. And it's not that I don't care to participate, but there's some things I am very focused on improving about myself. But I'm getting back to that point where I'm ready to just sort of launch back into the world, with what I've learned. I don't know how yet. And there's so many formats today. Like, there's so many ways to do it. It's just, and I want to do all of them because I see the potential in each one, right? And I've had that problem my whole life of like I see 10 amazing options,
hmm,
but I can't pick any of them because I feel like I'd be missing out
hmm,
on an opportunity,
hmm.
But just to settle in and recognize that it's okay to pick one right road because it's still a right road. It'll still give you that sort of rush that you had with any of the other ones because it's integral to who you are if you've really thought it through, because the people reach that point at different times in their life. Some people want to know what they do when they're 7 years old. I never understood that.
Yeah.
Whether it was what their parents did or just they watched a movie about astronauts or something, I don't know. Everyone gets to that point differently, but
Yeah, so many roads, and what's cool is that
mm,
you can walk down any of them.
yeah, seriously, and that's what I think terrifies people but also excites people. Just like, you could literally, especially in the modern day, it's like you could be anything, but it's not like, again, deriving identity from just your work alone isn't enough for people, I think, ultimately, because it's not it's your work. That's what you do to provide for yourself and others. And yeah, it does give you a sense of purpose, and it allows you to express your gifts. Ultimately, your identity is more than that. It's the reasons you chose to do that kind of work. It's how you carry yourself in your relationships. It's how you interact with the world. It's how you give of your time and energy to other people because you have a limited time. We all have limited time and energy, but it shows who we are by how we give that, how we harness and grow that. Like it shows. It really does. Yeah.
Well, man, thank you for this. I'm gonna upload this video right now,
Cool.
so make sure to
I want to check it out for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
make sure to subscribe so that you'll be able to see it. So
I
when it
will.
pops up, and yeah, man,
I
yeah,
appreciate it again. I'll leave a nice comment on the
yeah,
video.
and dude, honestly, like I have my email up all over that YouTube channel. So
Cool.
up, if you'd ever be interested in talking again, or
Yeah,
if something pops up and you want to like process it, and like have
I
someone to
will.
reflect with, like I will love to like bounce ideas back and forth with
I
you.
appreciate that. Seriously, like I'll subscribe so I don't forget now. Like I know that because I don't think anyone in my life right now that I talk to about this, because it's almost easier to talk to this stuff with people like who something you don't like. I don't know. They're not like family or friends in one sense. Like you don't want to share certain things but it's incredible to talk with people who you can just hash it out with, and then you can go about your day.
Yeah,
You're not going to run into them, and it's great because it gives you kind of a freedom. But it's not like a freedom to not care. It's just a freedom to really like hash it out. But
Well,
yeah, I appreciate that.
there's somewhat of like an objective relationship, like because
Yeah,
what I mean by that is that people in your life, in my life, in everyone's life has a constructed idea of who you are and interacts with you in a certain way. Whereas like this is, like we just met.
yeah,
We both have our points of view and it's more authentic, I think.
yeah. That's hmm.
That's my thought. I don't know.
No, that's a great way to look at it, like
I
an
mean, it's
objective
not
relationship. Because
really objective, but I mean, it's less judgmental.
it's a purposed, like it's two people that put aside, um, sort of, because like again, it's exploring ideas like this and talking it through requires people like us to like let down the gates that sometimes is harder to open up to with friends and family because we're just used to acting a certain way. They know us already so
Yeah.
well, and it's just like, hey, you know me, you know when I'm BSing. It's just, yeah, no, that's a good way to look at it. It's almost like I guess, a therapist, patient, or like teacher student, or like just lawyer to lawyer, like people who meet in that circle of where they find that sharpening of their minds and their creative thinking
Yeah.
skills enhanced. Like it's good, and I just haven't had that in so long. I think because I haven't been in school. I haven't. It's crazy to me that it's just parts of my mind I haven't worked for a long time. But yeah, I just subscribed.
Awesome, dude. I care about it, and I care about these discussions because I think they are the bedrock. You know. So I'll shut up now, and I need to get to bed. but
Yeah, it is late, but appreciate it again seriously, and I will let you know if I like if I because I'm honestly I probably will just check your uploads and then I'll probably hit you up when you got a new one, just like see if you run into anything cool. But
well, dude, I do one most every day, so you'll see a lot
cool,
if you're interested.
that's that's cool. Like I like how you framed it too on the page. It's like it's an art, also like a social project. Like it's a people project, social experiment art piece. Yeah. Oh, I
Well,
got a whole description in there.
all right,
All right,
dude.
cool.
I'll see you
All right,
later,
man.
man.
Have a good night.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Fitness.
Perfect way to end it.